Hello and welcome to the Inside Track, the podcast where we talk to the experts and global leaders making things happen in the world of innovation, business design, tech, and culture. I'm Fuzlin Esau, and today we're joined by Derek Gibb, Commercial Director here at Hedgehog Lab, as well as special guest Luke Stringer, Head of Engineering at Tide and Organizer of Leeds Mobile. Luke, I would love to know a little bit more about your journey and what you're up to right now.
Thanks so much. It's a real thrill to be here. My journey. So I guess I've always been interested in nerdy things. Is the best place to start. So at school I was really into maths. I was really into video games. I did go outside occasionally, but I guess I was quite that kind of stereotype. And I very nearly studied mathematics at university, for whatever reason, I decided that wouldn't be the best setup for a career, and so I decided to study software engineering in my hometown of Sheffield. And I have absolutely no regrets of that because it allowed me to combine sort of my loves of trying to figure things out with kind of a theoretical sort of mathematical background to it as well. And also it allowed me to play with all sorts of cool things. And there's been lots of cool things over the last 15 years that I've really enjoyed playing with. So I guess my journey started out as an individual contributor, a software engineer. When I was at university, the iPhone SDK came out, so this would have been 2009. And if anyone was in tech around that time, you'll remember it was a hugely exciting time. It was a really open landscape of possibility, this new device set to change the world. And it was really exciting to be on the ground floor of how we would design new applications. And then with the invention of things like the App Store, it really did change the way that we distributed, and we were able to get software into the hands of people, literally the hands of people. You know, there was a significant thrill of being able to actually reach out and actually touch the code that you were running, which was very exciting, and it still is now. And so, yeah, I've always been interested in mobile. It's something that is still a sort of core part of my, I guess, engineering personality. I built apps for iOS, built apps for Android. But I guess around about 5 years into my career, I realized I was just as interested in teams and engineering culture. And so I started to take a step into engineering management, technical leadership. And really, that's where the majority of my career has been. It's helping engineers build the best tools, giving them the right context, giving them the right support, or helping them understand not only what it is we're building, but why it is we're building it. And trying to combine all of that together to be able to deliver things for users and for customers, and try and have a good time along the way.
That's the most important one, trying to have a good time along the way. There has been many waves of disruption in the world of mobile dev and in the tech space in general, from native apps to React Native, subscription economies, and now, of course, we're seeing the AI boom. 2026 kind of feels like this inflection point for mobile teams now more than ever. So the question is, are we witnessing the biggest shift in app development since the smartphone revolution? And what does that mean for businesses investing in mobile today?
Fascinating topic. It seems like every year is the year of mobile, and then the next year becomes even bigger and better. It's hard to argue that AI hasn't totally disrupted the field, just the whole technology field, really. But focusing in on mobile, I think the thing that my mind isn't settled, so this is my opinion on the day of recording, but it does seem to me that the shift now is towards an even higher level of abstraction. And you noted there about the progression we've had over the last 10 years from building things natively, using the tools and SDKs provided by Apple and Google, to sort of a higher level of abstraction, whether that be React Native or Flutter or previous to that, something like PhoneGap, in how we need to build once and deploy twice. It feels like we're now in this phase of moving to yet another level of abstraction where we're not directly writing the code anymore. We're orchestrating AIs to do that for us. And I think the genie is out of the bottle now. And I think this is, you cannot fight against that. And it is hugely exciting. You know, if anybody has, sat down and vibe coded an app without any ambition to deploying it, of course, but sat there and seen a handful of ideas become an app, it is hugely exciting. The rest of the conversation around what that impact is on quality and the software development lifecycle, etc., I think is a conversation that doesn't have a period at the end of it just yet. But I think it's definitely allowing companies to think more about, well, we've got talented engineers, and they may be talented front end engineers. Can we use their engineering skills along with AI to supplement their understanding of what good coding looks like to create applications? You maybe the days of doing a skill transformation, taking native engineers and giving them skills in React Native or Flutter, maybe that is fading into the past. Maybe as long as they are good engineers, that they can use these tools to create the products. Um, it's an interesting thing, right? Because it's like the turkeys voting for Christmas, right? So I feel an awful lot of kinship with the way that I learned how to do it, right? Learning Objective C back in 2009, I guess it is. But you've got to move with the times, and in the same way that what I'm suggesting here is that I don't think we're going to be writing high-level languages like Swift and JavaScript forever. I'm not writing. I'm not writing C programming language anymore. I'm certainly not writing machine code anymore. So is this just the next level of abstraction? I guess is my sort of thoughts at the minute. But how that will all shake out, time will tell. Ask me next year. I'll have a different opinion.
I think you probably those opinions will be shared at some extent, in some extent throughout what we're doing because we've got. I think we're really benefiting seeing smart engineers or smart people being able to do more. And a really relevant example just now is one of our top mobile guys. We're going to deploy him on a project which is not mobile related because he, over his past few gigs, has been very much involved in developing AI in the software development lifecycle. So that those learnings can be very well applied to everything else, and it's not just because he's really good at Flutter or React. Irrelevant to what we're going to do here. So I think there's roles are changing, but there's definitely going to be opportunities for smart people, and I think that the smart people are always going to be in demand.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's certainly true, and that's why it's really key for you to get the fundamentals right. I was speaking with somebody who works at Sheffield University yesterday, and they were talking about how it's so important that even though students know AI exists, that they learn how to do it. I guess in their minds the old-fashioned way, because that allows them to know what good looks like. So that if an AI is giving you AI slop or stuff that is not adhering to the right principles, that then you as the human in the loop can step into that. Now, those engineering skills, if they're taught right and they're understood right, they are mostly agnostic to a programming language. What you're learning there is the idiom of the programming language. You're not learning object-oriented programming or what test-driven development is or accessibility or security. They're the fundamental axioms that you need to know. And if you're an engineer who's got that skill set, then that is the promise of AI, that you can use those tools to then be able to, you know, create something for a different platform or in a different language that you've not had the hands-on skills with, and that is where the real utopia is, and I hope that is the direction we're heading in.
Good, and I think I would agree with that. I think probably taking it back to mobile though, I get, as I say, I'm selfishly really interested in having a more mobile focused chat. So I'd love to get your opinion on, like, is it the end of cheap growth in terms of actually people want are spending more money in fewer apps, because a lot of the things that we're looking at is like, okay, how do we take a fairly transactional mobile app and turn it into an entire experience, from onboarding to using something in a physical location or being involved with a brand when you're not with them and things like that. So is that a view that you hold as well?
I'm not. I don't have any strong opinions. I guess related to this though is what you're sort of touching on there, which is like the consumer behavior side of it. If what we've talked about here is more like the engineering, how do you use AI to create value quicker? Certainly within Android over the last couple of years, and now with iOS 27, the operating systems are actively moving towards more of an agentic operating system. So rather than these, um, big monolithic apps, for want of a better word, that do a thing, the applications are encouraged to open up themselves to being used through AI, so that it can be invoked by Gemini or Siri, etc. And so a consumer's interaction with a product or a service may be through this layer of AI rather than opening the Uber app, for example. And then once you're in the Uber app, you've got the Uber brand, you've got the experience. They can make it sticky, make you want to come back. Well, actually, if you're interacting with that through a prompt, and the prompt is high quality, and it gets you the Uber, and it arrives on time, then what incentive is there for you to go into the application? So I think that is perhaps going to change the relationship. I imagine that application developers and product companies are going to optimize for that rather than this come into our walled garden, come into our application and experience it. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Google's been doing this for a little while now with what they've been doing with Android, but the whole the app intent system that is coming out in iOS 27, and the betas are out now, so you can download them, and some applications are already supporting this. I think we'll see over the next year in the Apple ecosystem, at least, a kind of a decomposition of application experiences into smaller things that you can show, either in widgets or in prompts, and what that will mean for growth and what that will mean for consumer behavior. I don't have a good view of, but I think that will change for sure.
Can I just complete the loop on this then? Because we're talking about the shift in role of engineers and developers, right? So if we're developing different things and optimizing for different things, how does that affect the role of the developer? Because as you say, we're not developing loads of static screens, right? We're getting to the point where we want to interact via conversational language or whatever, but it's not the way that we would have coded 10 years ago, for sure. Maybe 5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. So are engineers becoming more like systems architects, or what do you see that becoming?
Probably. I guess, you're orchestrating the agents to a certain extent. That's probably what your job will become. But I think perhaps the architectural thing that engineers would need to consider in that scenario is your application is a collection of experiences that can be presented to customers in various different forms. And we've already got that. This is not a brand new thing. The idea of push notifications or the idea of home screen widgets or some kind of interaction which isn't you going directly into the software. Engineers have been encouraged to adopt that kind of way of working for a while now. I think we're just going to see that 10x, really. If we really do need to embrace this kind of Gemini or Siri reaching into an application and looking for local context to say, oh, it's your WhatsApp messages that I can use to answer this prompt. And in fact, I'll actually show you in line. Then you as an application developer, you need to consider what you are as not this monolithic application that people come to, but actually a collection of experiences in different domains. And of course, you can get into the conversation about, how an application experience is different on a phone, on a tablet, on a watch, on a TV, in the augmented reality glasses. It's not just a rectangular screen that people interact with anymore. It's really multimodal, and I think embracing that from an architectural point of view will allow you to keep up with this new trend.
I think much to my wife's chagrin, I've been an Android user for over a decade. Furious with me still, but I've never had a native Google device until handset rather until this year, where I got a Pixel. The way that now drives everything with agentic workflows and everything that's in it is, as you say, you're not using the native apps for everything that you're doing, and because it mixes into every part of my home, like my Google Home system and everything, it's all now. It's just a bit different, isn't it? It's not, you're not opening up 10 different apps to do 10 different things. So to your point, I think there's a lot of change there. I think the other thing, which again I'd like your opinion on, is it seems like we don't need to, or we don't necessarily optimize for that acquisition period anymore, because you want to keep people, right? So are you optimizing for retention via AI, personalization, all that sort of stuff that we can now do more effectively? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't really know. It's difficult, isn't it? I guess the whole retention thing a lot of the time is sort of gracefully nudging people to come back to the experience. Come back and be in our wonderful walled garden and spend some more money with us, basically. But if I can get what I need out of that walled garden just by talking to an AI or looking at a home screen widget, then what is that incentive? I don't know. It would certainly change my behaviour. I mean, one of the things that I feel is criminally underused by iOS users is the shortcuts application, and I use that a lot to be able to automate certain things, which I would otherwise have to go into an app and do something. Well, the app developers can expose these little components within inside their application so that you can basically create an automation flow and get everything done. I, I don't therefore have to go back into the Notes app. I just do it all through my own thing. Now, the Notes app isn't wanting me to it's not acquiring me to buy any products, but you can imagine that being a problem. So, yeah, I don't have good answers to that, unfortunately, but it is a problem that product engineering teams will need to grapple with for sure.
It just so happens the next question is around Google, or specifically Google Connect event that just recently took place, showcasing all of Google's latest thinking around Gemini and Android, AI-powered development, and sort of the future of digital experiences. Now, I know, Luke, you were in attendance. What did you see there that convinced you the future of digital products will look different from what we're building today? Will it look different from what we're building today?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly going to look different from a product development point of view. Maybe the actual customer experience at the end of it may take a little longer to catch up. But it's that difference between agentic development and agentic user experience. I think we're already in the agentic development world, whether we like it or not. But this move to kind of agentic applications, I think that'll be a slightly slower burn because we need to, retrain customers to be familiar with that. But I guess the standout thing, and this comes from the horse's mouth, that from Google directly, is that their advice is that any organization that is doing product development, engineering product development, it's for everybody to become AI fluid. So this is not just a skill that the coders need. They need it, obviously, but this is something that everybody in product engineering, whether that's a product manager, an analyst, a marketeer, a tester, a business executive, they need to be as fluent in AI as the engineers and understand the value in that. Everyone in this new world can become a builder. Now, as an engineer, I want to be very clear that that doesn't mean that we deploy everything. There needs to be the full software development lifecycle around that idea. But I think that was the takeaway message, and it was very much one that suits Google's business aims. Of course, they want you to do that so that they can upgrade you to the Gemini Pro Max plan, etc., etc. But the tooling is getting better all the time. There's less hallucinations. So yeah, that was the takeaway from an engineering point of view. But I think the other takeaways for me, and Google I/O Connect is something that runs every year, and Google invite people who run Google developer groups like myself, or people who are Google developer experts, or people who work in kind of the Google ecosystem, to learn from Google about what it is the new products and the tools are, but also to come together. And I think there's definitely those two sides of it. It's the knowledge that you gain, but also the wisdom that you gain. And I think you don't get the wisdom by just reading documentation or watching YouTube videos. You go and have spirited discussions and disagreements with other people. And you do that at Google I/O Connect with people from literally all over Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So it is a real melting pot of ideas. And I think that was the key takeaway for me, that everybody is excited about this, but everyone is a little bit sort of similar to what I'm saying, right? No one quite knows how it's going to land or how it's actually going to change the way we do our software development. But it's a really engaging experience to be able to go and do that with like-minded people, and discuss what the future may be for the sector, for the industry. Yeah, really good.
Love it. Anything pique your interest? Sit down.
Yeah, I guess I think the things that I took away from it were how to use the AI tooling effectively at scale. And I think the takeaway that sticks in my mind is that in order for AI to be effective, you actually need a fairly opinionated engineering culture in your company. And to put it another way, you need to have that written down so that an AI can actually enact upon that and actually add value. And really, what that means is that if you've been following good engineering practices for the last 5 or so years or less, that slotting in AI into that world is much easier than if you've had a bit of a fun and fancy-free kind of attitude to it, where there isn't really a right answer. Should you use tabs or spaces? Those kind of discussions may seem incidental, but that kind of discussion, when you actually then overlay an AI on top of it, is really useful for it to be able to do what is deemed to be the right thing. And architecture is definitely a part of that. The way you write your requirements documents is a part of that. I think if you've got a strong culture of what you see as right and wrong, then AI can help boost that. If you don't have that, then that's where it starts to become less effective, and it doesn't actually help you because you're correcting it all of the time. So I guess that's a win for people who care about the right way to do things, and will therefore benefit from spending the last 5 or so years making sure that the right techniques, the right standards, the right architectural principles are followed, because that's where tools like Gemini, Claude, etc., will actually excel in that kind of environment.
That's really interesting, and really a point that was echoed in a recording we did actually yesterday around having that opinionated voice. So even someone who is maybe not quite anti-AI, but who will certainly challenge things and make sure that things are done the right way. So to your point around having real experts as well who can say this is the way we should be doing things, rather than just being happily saying yes to the whatever the machine spits out, is that seems like a very, very relevant point just now.
Yeah, and the thing that I was sort of ruminating on after the conference is that I think all of that made sense. But my worry here is, and this may be me being a bit of a Luddite in retrospect, but is if I'm not writing as much code, do I actually know what good code looks like? And I guess the metaphor I give there is that so my favorite author is Stephen King, right? I think he's absolutely fantastic, and he churns out lots of books, right? So he probably doesn't need an AI to help him go any quicker. But let's say he did. Let's say he could produce 20 times more books, and all he was doing is prompting his way through them. Would he know what good looks like anymore? He isn't actually getting the words through his fingers into his typewriter anymore. He's becoming a book reviewer more than anything. And I worry that if that is what the role of a software engineer becomes, it is somebody who is simply reviewing and prompting, that if you're not sitting down and actually doing the actual task yourself, that your ability to spot what good looks like, and also more importantly what bad looks like, that starts to fade in terms of a skill, in terms of a muscle that you're just not using as much anymore. It's impossible for me to validate that. We'd have to jump in a time machine and go 5 years into the future. But yeah, it does worry me slightly. But and I don't think anyone's quite talking about that at the minute.
Well, I read a study which I'll try and find and share with you, which is around exactly that, basically saying, and it wasn't specifically engineering focused, but basically saying you shouldn't outsource your brain. You should do the things that you love or that are important to you to keep that muscle memory, right? Because if you suddenly stop doing the things which made you useful or whatever in your career, if Stephen King stopped writing books and just did the prompting, would he then be able to write a book in 10 years' time? Maybe not. Same if you don't write a single line of code for years and years, what happens to your skills? Like it's that, okay, the machine can do the thing, but actually we need to make sure that the person running it actually can do the thing as well.
Yeah, but this is why I'm slightly conflicted about it though, because I could argue the other way around. So like, when I first started doing mobile development, because of the hardware limitations, you had to do manual memory management. You had to be very careful about how much RAM you were using because we had a pitifully small amount of it. I've totally forgotten how to do that. There's no need for me to know how to do it anymore. So therefore, it's not useful for me to retain those skills. Is that true at large about writing code and software engineering? I'm not convinced it is, but I feel like there is some sort of like middle ground there where it is fine for you to get rusty and forget some skills, but as long as it's not the whole thing, as long as it's not your whole brain, I guess was your point there, Derek.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree.
events are something that we really do enjoy here at Hedgehog. We have our monthly Changemakers Club, which is really a chance to kind of bring people together through and discuss different things and different parts of sort of the tech space. But we also know that you run sort of Leeds Mobile, which is also around focusing knowledge around tech and mobile development. Now, I think the question here is, one, why have you continued to invest in sort of these real world events? And what has that experience taught you about the role of human connection in tech?
Yeah, I think that second question sort of gets at the heart of why I do it. Really, it is very easy um, to forget why we build software. It's for people, right?
Yeah.
And the people who build it, like the people who are talking here, you need to have some sort of camaraderie and some community there. Um, and I think you can certainly find that online. I know Stack Overflow isn't what it used to be, but that used to be a great way of learning things. Open source communities are fantastic as well. But I guess for me, especially as I work mostly remote, being able to go and speak to other people who do the same thing as me and have a spirited discussion, I think makes me a better person. It makes me less biased towards my own sort of viewpoint. Um, it's just important to be able to have that connection with people, because if we are going down this rabbit hole of AI, that it's even more important to have a team and a culture around you that you feel like you are part of. Um, so I think that's kind of the philosophical reason, I suppose. The practical reason is that it's really important for us as individuals to be able to find solutions to problems that we might not be able to get online. Like I said before, wisdom comes from people. You can get the knowledge online, but the wisdom comes from the community. Um, and I think if I had a monthly meetup that I could go to at a certain part in my career, I would have found that a hugely useful tool for me to make connections, to find opportunities, to learn new things. Um, and there's been some really standout moments at Leeds Mobile that have just really reaffirmed my sort of belief that this is the right thing to do. There was a gentleman who came a few years ago, and he was not late to the meetup, but didn't turn up precisely on time. And he said, what do I do? Where do I go? And he says, oh, you just grab yourself a slice of pizza, enjoy the talk. And he said, okay, where do I pay? I said, no, this is a free event. You don't need to pay. You've misunderstood what this is. And afterwards, he was speaking to me. He says, I've recently come from Ukraine, fled the war there. I'm an app developer, come to Leeds, resettled here, but I don't know anybody. I don't have any opportunities for jobs. But this community I just stumbled across online, it's given me something that I can now, talk about with people, and I understand what is happening in this area. And that experience for that gentleman was just as valid for the hundreds of other people who've come along and eaten a slice of pizza. And I think that's really important. And so that's why I keep doing it, because you get those little glimmers of sort of, well, that's really meant something to somebody. And, it creates a connection there that you wouldn't otherwise have by just sitting and writing JavaScript at your keyboard. And I find it hugely rewarding as well. I like being around people. I like welcoming them in. I was very shy and introverted as a teenager and a young man. I feel like I've overcome a lot of that social anxiety, and part of it is through kind of forcing myself to go to these kind of events and then running one myself. It's hard to not be sort of extroverted in that scenario, and I found that just personally to be a great source of inspiration to overcome my own concerns, my own imposter syndrome, and being able to create that environment for other people to do the same thing. Is sort of a fundamental reason why I keep on doing it with the team of people that support me. It's not just a one person thing. I founded it, but it is a village that runs these things: organisers, speakers, venue hosts, sponsors. Hedgehog Lab, they proudly sponsored us a few years ago. We were at one of your offices in Leeds, and yeah, trying to build it out as a Leeds community that isn't owned by any one business, that's not run by any one person. It just kind of makes it that kind of like open source sort of feel as well. So yeah, and I will continue to do it. It's hugely rewarding.
Beautiful story to start that, but I think everything's anchored on that connection, right? And it's either the sort of stuff you talk about knowledge, you talk about wisdom and knowledge, because it is getting that the why, I guess, isn't it? Like why? Like, okay, we know how to do it because we can read how to do it, but speaking to someone who's been in the trenches doing it for many years and getting that why is the stuff that comes out when you're having a beer or whatever, coffee, just having a chat. That's not necessarily a pre-arranged meeting to talk about a specific project. It's like, actually, yeah, we did this thing and we figured that bit out, and yeah, it's just a different way of doing it. And if you're able to do it in such a way that you might actually be impacting people's lives as well, like this guy who's come to the country and not had a network whatsoever, like that's beautiful. So yeah, more power to you to do that. And again, Fuzlin mentioned our meetups as well. Our Changemakers Club is it's my favorite night of the month as well, and it's I still get nervous making like are people going to turn up, all that sort of stuff. Despite it being invite only and quite good for attendance numbers, it's having people in the same room, having connections, people who might not necessarily otherwise meet each other. It's an excellent way of just having fun. Like yeah, there's business benefits, but I have a genuine fondness for it. I really, really do enjoy them.
Yeah, by design, Leeds Mobile is meant to be a broad church. It's not called Leeds iOS or Leeds Android. It's mobile, right? And mobile is, pretty expansive at this point. It's lots of different things. But also it's not, Leeds mobile development. So, we're very proud that we've had just as many talks about non-engineering topics. We've had talks about starting a business, getting a career, accessibility, security, design. We've had panel discussions about the impact of mobile apps on society. And I think that broad church where people from all different skills and backgrounds, it really does create a really inclusive kind of environment where, you can meet people who you wouldn't otherwise meet. And a lot of organizations, through, understandable organizational structure, you are in an engineering business unit or a product business unit. I was keen to not do that in a meetup. I wanted it to just be everybody at the same level, equals, talking about subjects with like-minded people. And yeah, it's really good. I enjoy it. I enjoy it immensely. It's one of the it is basically my hobby at this point. It's a lot of admin. It's a lot of emailing people. It's a lot of random messages on LinkedIn. Hi, would you like to do a talk? But when that all comes together in that wonderful melting pot, that one night a month, it is my favorite night a month. Just like your meetup is for you, Derek, and it makes it all worth it as well. And yeah, it's really good.
Cool, very cool.
Never underestimate the power of conversation. I think we're all sitting and we set aside time. We go, we have this call for this and this call for that. But sometimes you just need a conversation that rambles and goes into different things to really sort of trigger new ways of thinking and new exciting ideas. So always love a good face-to-face meetup to hash things out.
Yeah, absolutely. It saves drinking beer in front of a screen, doesn't it, as well? So
that feels a little weird at times. You're sort of like, oh, just like sitting here.
I think we've all, because of where we are now with remote working, we've all sort of made our peace with this. I mean, we're all on a call, right? And I think we're doing just fine getting on. But it's not a natural thing, I think, for humans to do this. And it takes more psychological and emotional effort to keep engaging, to not keep looking at your own part of the screen. It's like having a conversation with someone and they're holding up a mirror. It's a weird thing to be doing. If we went back 50 years and said your working day would be looking at yourselves as well as your colleagues, people would think that's crazy. But we do it and we make it work. But occasionally it's good to do it the old-fashioned way in real life, and creating spaces for that is really important.
It's nice to have a conversation where you're not looking at your own face.
Absolutely.
Simple pleasures in life.
For sure. I mean, I need to go to the barber, so I wish I couldn't see my own hair just now.
It doesn't sort of like, oh, okay, I need to do this, and you're able to make notes on your own appearance, which is probably, an even worse part of the whole thing. Where you're like, oh, this little thing's not really exactly how I wanted.
Become hyper aware of what you look like, which is perhaps not a good. It's not a good thing. I don't think it's a good trait we should encourage in people. No.
But it's a good note to kind of move into our next segment, which is our cultural pick of the week, which is what has inspired you this week, this month, over the last few days. Film, TV design, or a book that's really sort of inspired you. Luke, what has inspired you this week?
I guess the most recent thing that inspired me, and I know we're going back into topics we've discussed, but was going to Google I/O Connect. It was, the AI stuff was fantastic to see, but it is that coming together of people who do something similar, who don't look like you, who don't speak the same language as you, from a different country, and having that common cause. It's very easy to fall into despair when you read about the state of the world, and I'm very privileged to live in a country that is stable, and I've got a good standard of living, etc. But it's very easy to sort of get siloed and feel like the world has become atomized. And events like Google I/O Connect, where you go to and you meet people from all walks of life, and you just get on. It just reaffirms your sort of faith in humanity without getting too grandiose about it. And I always come back inspired. I always learn new things about my job, but also about the world. It gets me out of my head. I live in a very anglicized world. At Tide, I work with people from all over Europe and India, but we all speak English on the calls. So I don't have to really adapt that much. But I find, going and spending time with people from different cultures and backgrounds and languages, I just think it checks my own biases in a very positive way. And I hopefully come back a more well-rounded person with broader, understanding of people and culture and languages. And I think that is I am inspired by that. And I'd encourage everyone to do something similar themselves. Get out of their own head occasionally, basically.
Derek, what's inspired you this week?
I was on holiday last week and part of this week, and I smashed my phone screen. There's a whole movement. I say I didn't do it on purpose. I could actually say one of my children smashed my phone screen. Anyway, there's a whole movement to people getting dumb phones and all this sort of stuff, right? As well, but I am definitely an addict on a phone. Like, I'm working, I'm doing stuff all the time. I've always got it, and to actually not have it for a week, and just fully engage in life. Now I know it's not a true reflection of life, because I was like cycling bikes and swimming and doing all that sort of stuff. But to be disconnected for a little while was good. So not maybe the topic for this, but just to be. Come from a different sort of contrarian angle, I think that was good for me to actually just take a breather for a bit. I'm still back on it with a slightly cracked screen, by the way, but for those few days, it was good.
You know what they say about people whose screens are cracked, Derek?
I don't know, but I can't imagine it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's like the more your screen is cracked, the less you have a hold on your life.
I am getting a replacement. It is happening. I just haven't had time, so I will get there. I'm not totally cracked, I promise you.
We're all cracked in some way, Derek. We're all imperfect, just like everybody's phone screen eventually.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll take that.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the both of you for having this really enlightening conversation with me today. And thank you to everyone who's listening. To find out more about our sessions, our briefings, our product builders, or the Expert Network, head on over to our website, our social channels, and of course, follow this podcast for more exciting information like this. We will see you next week.